In the land of Canaan lived a man named Jacob, and among his 12 sons, one was loved above all the rest. His name was Joseph, the son of his old age, born to his beloved wife Rachel. To show his love, Jacob gave Joseph a coat unlike any other, a rich, colorful robe that marked him as the favored child. One night, Joseph dreamed a strange dream. He saw his brothers' sheaves of wheat bowing down to his own sheaf. Then he dreamed again, this time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed before him. When he told his brothers, their hatred deepened. Even his father wondered what these visions could mean. Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were tending the family's flocks far from home in Dothan. As Joseph approached in his colorful coat, his brothers saw him from a distance, and their jealousy turned to something darker. The brothers seized Joseph, stripped him of his coat, and threw him into an empty cistern. As they sat down to eat, a caravan of traders passed by, heading to Egypt. Judah proposed selling their brother rather than killing him. For 20 pieces of silver, Joseph was sold into slavery. The brothers dipped Joseph's coat in goat's blood and brought it to their father. Jacob believed his beloved son had been torn apart by a wild animal. He tore his clothes in grief and mourned for many days, refusing to be comforted. The traders carried Joseph into Egypt and sold him to Potiphar, a captain of Pharaoh's guard. Though a slave in a foreign land, God was with Joseph. He rose to become the manager of Potiphar's entire household, trusted with everything his master owned. Potiphar's wife tried again and again to seduce Joseph, but he refused, unwilling to sin against God and betray his master's trust. One day, when he fled from her grasp, she used his abandoned cloak as false evidence, accusing him of assault. Enraged, Potiphar threw Joseph into prison. Even in the darkness of prison, God's favor remained on Joseph. The jailer placed him in charge of the other prisoners. There, Joseph met 2 of Pharaoh's officials, a cupbearer and a baker, both troubled by strange dreams. Joseph interpreted their dreams. In 3 days, the cupbearer would be restored to Pharaoh's service, but the baker would be executed. Everything happened exactly as Joseph foretold. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him, but once freed, the cupbearer forgot him for 2 long years. 2 years later, Pharaoh himself dreamed strange dreams: 7 fat cows devoured by 7 gaunt cows, and 7 healthy heads of grain swallowed by 7 withered ones. No wise man or magician in Egypt could explain their meaning. Then the cupbearer remembered Joseph. Joseph was brought quickly from the prison, shaved and dressed, and stood before Pharaoh. He explained that the dreams meant 7 years of abundant harvest would be followed by 7 years of severe famine. He advised Pharaoh to store grain during the good years to survive the famine to come. Impressed by Joseph's wisdom, Pharaoh appointed him ruler over all of Egypt, second only to himself. He placed his own signet ring on Joseph's hand, dressed him in fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. Joseph, once a slave and prisoner, now rode in a chariot as all of Egypt bowed before him. For 7 years, the land produced bountiful harvests, and Joseph gathered grain into storehouses in every city. Then came 7 years of famine, so severe it spread beyond Egypt into all the surrounding lands, including Canaan, where Joseph's family still lived. Hearing there was grain in Egypt, Jacob sent 10 of his sons to buy food, keeping only the youngest, Benjamin, at home. They came before the powerful Egyptian official in charge of the grain, not realizing it was their brother Joseph, and bowed low before him, just as his childhood dreams had foretold. Joseph recognized his brothers instantly, though they did not know him. He spoke harshly, accusing them of being spies, and demanded they bring their youngest brother Benjamin to prove their honesty. He kept Simeon behind as a hostage and sent the rest home with grain and their silver secretly returned in their sacks. When the brothers returned with Benjamin, Joseph tested them once more, planting his silver cup in Benjamin's sack and accusing him of theft. Judah, once willing to sell Joseph into slavery, now begged to take Benjamin's place, unwilling to bring more grief to his aging father. Overwhelmed with emotion, Joseph could contain himself no longer. He sent his Egyptian attendants away and wept aloud, saying, "I am Joseph. Does my father still live?" His brothers stood in stunned silence and fear, but Joseph embraced them, saying God had sent him ahead of them to preserve their lives. Joseph sent his brothers back to Canaan to bring their father and all their families to Egypt. When Jacob heard that Joseph was alive, his spirit revived, and he said, "It is enough. My son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." When Joseph saw his father approaching, he rushed to him, threw his arms around his neck, and wept for a long time. Jacob said, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen your face and know you are still alive." Joseph settled his whole family in the fertile land of Goshen. In his final days, Jacob blessed Joseph's 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, crossing his hands to give the greater blessing to the younger son. He then gathered all his sons and blessed each of them before he died, and was carried back to be buried in Canaan with his fathers. After Jacob's death, Joseph's brothers feared he might finally take revenge, but Joseph wept and reassured them. "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph lived to see his great-grandchildren, and before he died at the age of 110, he asked that his bones be carried out of Egypt when God brought his people to the Promised Land.